So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning, I'm delighted to have with us Helen Hartley, who's director at Helen Hartley Consulting. So, Helen, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, your business, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So I started my business 4 years ago. I was on the Adventure Program, which is a really great growth program in Leeds for small startup businesses. And then since then went on to the NatWest Accelerator to help me grow my business. So my experience is I'm one of only 13% of female creative directors in the UK. There's a
Wow.
massive disparity
Yep.
in the creative industry. Where do all the older women go? And that's obviously kind of the same in quite a few industries where women are kind of just kind of more the maternal kind of sort of child provider, I suppose, and child carer. So that's really important to me as part of my business to be able to support not just women but parents who have got immense skill set but actually want a more flexible working life.
Yep.
So I started my brand consultancy after 20 years working as creative director in London and in the north at Elmwood. And what we do is we work with healthy tech and healthy food businesses,
Okay.
specifically founders, to create a positive impact in the world. So I started a creative collective. I didn't want to run an agency, so we're not an agency. We are a series of small businesses that come together, like the A team in the 80s, because I'm that old, to work on some really big global brands, but also to help smaller startup brands and founders who need the really strong expertise to get investment or to build a brand, but don't have the resources of 100K that a London brand agency would charge.
Yep.
So we work together, and the beauty of working together on healthy tech and healthy food brands is the impact. We're not in it for the money as creatives. You don't get into the creative industry to make a fortune.
Right. Yep.
Be a lawyer otherwise if you want to do that. We and my team of collaborators, we want to work together to create positive social and economic and environmental impact. So we only take on those sort of clients. And we all work equitably together. And I try to bring in people that are predominantly from the north and from the Yorkshire region. And then I do have some collaborators that just by knowing people in London that have moved into different areas, and some are even sort of in different countries, but we work together. And some of our clients have been sort of Ocean Spray, which is a global cranberry brand, like
Yep.
the Arla of cranberries, if anybody knows who Arla is in the north. So Ocean Spray are a farmers cooperative. They're fifth generation, lots of female farmers. So not a lot of people know about the Ocean Spray story, which is where we've tried to bring it to life specifically on the packaging to get more people understanding the great things that they do. They also support breast cancer awareness as well. So that brand really ticks a lot of the boxes for us.
Yep.
And then we work with a lot of B Corps like Corsten Press. And then we'll also work with technology brands such as SafetyNet, which is a cybersecurity brand, which is working with the government to help keep children safe online.
Yep.
So everything we do before we take on a project needs to have a tangible impact that makes us feel like it's worthwhile.
Brilliant. Absolutely wonderful. Um, so, yeah, I mean, there's a couple of really strong brands there, both one sort of international and Corsten Press, certainly national. I guess it may well be international now. I think we mentioned before we started that it was founded by a friend of mine, so it's something very close to my heart. Um, Brilliant. So, yeah, and you started talking very initially about that idea of supporting parents. I guess disproportionately it's going to be women who want to contribute, and I really believe that. I believe for a very long time that it is women that choose to be the child carer in the relationship are a massively untapped, significant resource of if we can provide roles that, if they choose to be able to pick the kids up, after not, drop them off after 9, pick them up before 3, then there's still a hell of a working day for many, many incredibly valuable people to contribute. And I guess that's some of the resources you're tapping into at the moment.
Yeah, and I think about being flexible, the creative doesn't automatically turn on at 9 o'clock and we can think of a
Of
million
course.
ideas. And
Yes.
you don't necessarily turn off at 5 o'clock. It's
Yes.
a really sort of old school way of
Yeah.
approach. So what we do is you're creative when you're feeling it. So sometimes we will work together, and what we work on a flexible kind of Google Sprint model where we'll have an objective, we'll have the aim, we'll give ourselves a certain amount of time, and then we'll be accountable for our own time. So it's small businesses being accountable, being actively kind of productive, but in their own way. And it's a way
Yeah.
that's worked really well for 4 years. It's not about somebody needs to be at a desk at 9 o'clock in the morning, otherwise it seems like you're not working. And especially in the creative industry, if you ever left before 5 o'clock, you were frowned upon, and that's absolute nonsense. So I'm kind of proof of the pudding that I can work with up to kind of 10 or 15 creative thinkers, and we can all work at different times. You just need to be super organized, be accountable for your own time, and want to work passionately on something. And I think being passionate about something means you actually put in more hours than you probably charge for in the end because you care about something, which is the whole point of why we are creatives who want to use design to solve challenges.
Brilliant. I'll consider myself suitably educated because I completely agree with what you said. So it's bang on, and it's true. I mean, I would say actually it's true of anybody, not just creatives, that we don't necessarily work best between some fixed hours, and the if there is any benefits of the last 6 years of going through COVID and various things, it has taught us that we can work so flexibly. Why don't we work to suit
Mm.
not just us, but our ability to deliver and produce and add value at the times and in the way that works best for us. So 100% agree with that. I do old school thinking because I am getting a bit old, so you'll forgive me for that if that's okay. Um, yeah, so you founded it 4 years ago, and I love the model that you're following. When you look at how you've grown your business and what you do, what are some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome, Helen?
I think some of the biggest challenges are, first of all, for any business, you might start with about 3 months of financial wiggle room, and then you
Yeah,
need to get some clients and start getting some invoicing done. Because as even in the creative business, the reason why I went on the adventure program and joined the NatWest Accelerator is being on sort of boards and knowing like SLTs and things like that. And knowing that you have to generate the revenue every month. It's all very well being creative and having a beautiful project and helping people, but you have to have invoiced that month or else you can't pay your mortgage. So I think when you start up your own business as anybody in any industry, you have to be really cognizant. They call it sort of sanity rather than vanity.
yeah,
So the idea of keeping your costs low, I think that was the biggest learning and challenge for me because I was used to big agencies and you can just I don't, there's just lots of money sloshing around, or there was when I used to work for them. Obviously belt tightening's happening now, but you really have to be cognizant that you have to keep your cost base really low. So I don't have an office. It's a virtual working relationship. We work online, so we use Miro boards, so it's a much more agile way of working.
yeah,
But also, so I could have got a big office, rented somewhere in Leeds, gone, oh, look at ex creative director. I've started my own agency, but that would have been vanity, not sanity.
yeah. Brilliant.
So the idea of being part of the NatWest Accelerator was great way to overcome any challenges because it was much more business focused. The doing and the creating was the stuff that I knew. The business side of it and creating your own business and making sure that you know what your profit and loss margin is every month. All the stuff that you don't really have to touch when you're in a larger entity.
Yeah.
Um, that was a big challenge, and I overcame it literally by joining an accelerator program. And they said, "What's the thing that scares you most?" And I was like, "Money." I was like, "I hate talking about money. I hate sales. And in the end, I think I've tackled the sales and the money side, and just tackled it head on. And that was really scary, I'm not going to lie. And I think pipeline, and we call it pipeline, the ability to forecast and to generate new business is always a challenge every year.
Yep.
Basically, I think I went on kind of some sort of salesy kind of course, and I basically said, it was on a panel to a lot of entrepreneurs in the NatWest, and I said every opportunity is a sales moment, and I didn't think that I would ever say that as a creative who absolutely moves away from sales and finds it so cringeworthy. But it's not about selling and about pitching. It's about listening to people and spotting those moments where you think, no, I can make a sale here, but I can help
No.
somebody, and trying to sell in your own very genuine way.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I do a lot of sales training and sales coaching, and our definition of selling is professionally helping people buy what they need. So I think the challenge, the mindset challenge we have is we somehow making something do something they don't really want to do. It's all about taking money from
Mm,
them. This is about a trade of our skills and services that have incredible value and your desire to want to engage with us. Now, the way the world is, it's a financial transaction. That's the only bit that's an issue. And once we get away from feeling like we're making somebody do something we don't want to do and engaging with somebody to understand what they need, match that with our services if that's possible, and if not, recommend other options, other people.
mm,
For me, it's just like I'm here to help you, and very few people don't want to help somebody else. And I think it's just that change of it. For me, sales coaching and training is about changing mindset, not necessarily about giving people better tools. Well,
mm,
once they've changed the mindset, the tools are easy to pick up and use, and that makes sense. So I completely agree with you. And I think it's most important that we move away from an idea of if we were just in sales to try and make somebody do something they don't really want to do, then we're in the wrong business, I would suggest. So I completely agree with that. And I know I think you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. So I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you personally?
Um, I think almost some of the there's the grow model. I don't know whether people are familiar with that. So it's a really kind of agile way of coaching yourself in a group. So some of the best coaching sessions I've had have been where, say, five or six entrepreneurs in the NatWest have gone through the grow model. And it's really quick to do. It's kind of what's your goal, then you talk about your goal, and other people listen, and then they respond, and then you think about the outcomes, and then you think about what action you're going to take. And it's like 15 minutes, and it's just tackling one challenge at a time. And that was a really interesting coaching session, because it was self-run by entrepreneurs in totally different fields, and helping each other. And I think that's really, really valuable. I can't express the amount of support that you can get from other people in the same boat as you, because they will all have done things that are wrong, things that were successful, and having those different opinions in the room is really interesting. So I think coaching with like-minded people and just doing it yourself is really good, but getting a framework to do it on. And then I also think I had a great sort of coach. Obviously, through my career, I've had some really good
Yeah,
creative directors when I've been junior designers and things. And they've been really good at coaching me into leadership and things like that. So I always kind of pay homage to my favorite creative director, Stephen Bell, who used to work for Coley Porter Bell as the creative director there, and he was amazing. He was the most. He just really affirmed championing women in business, really pushed me forward. And also, coaches can kind of open up opportunities for you. So it's great getting advice, but if you don't have an opportunity to then use that, it's really difficult. So he was very good at giving you the opportunity. And then in recent years, I think the NatWest coach has actually moved on to department in Manchester, and he's heading up the whole tech hub there. But he's called Rich, and he was a very laid back coach. He was almost like talk to me, and then he almost helped you solve your own problem rather than giving you and just prompting you and provoking you and
Absolutely.
giving you. And I think that sort of coaching, because I think you probably do have the answer inside. You just
100%.
need somebody to pull it out of you. So I think it's coaching methods are interesting. But I think one of, yeah, as I said, my first coach on the NatWest Accelerator almost didn't give me any answers. I found them myself, but he made me find them myself.
100%. It's absolutely one of the fundamental principles that I have of coaching is the truth is already inside us. The job of a great coach is to help you get
Mm,
it out, because the thing that's stopping it getting out is all the beliefs we have around why we can't do things, if that makes sense. So it's
yeah.
stripping away those things to uncover the thing that we really know we can achieve and want to achieve. And then adding education where we've got it. Look, I know I can do it. I believe I can do it, but I don't know how to do that thing. So okay, let's get some education. So I think I find this a lot in what I do, is that there's a misunderstanding created often by the market between consulting, which is advising, telling people based on experience you have, and that's a valuable thing to do. So look, I've got this experience, therefore I think you should do this, and coaching, which is specifically helping people find their way forward with guidance and education. And no, it's absolutely bang on. So I'm so glad that's helped. And I think I absolutely agree with groups. It's why I joined a global organization of coaches, because we share knowledge and education. I can't imagine an individual coach drawing only on their own knowledge, and that's why I didn't want to be one. Is drawing on their own knowledge alone can advise somebody else, because it's like we've only got. I had a reasonably successful business career before I became a coach, but that's one career. It's just like
Mm.
one set of knowledge and learning. So it's really the old idea of bringing people together is so valuable. And I'm a bit of a collector of quotes and sayings about success or business or personal growth. Do you have any favourite quotes or sayings that you find catch yourself using on a regular basis?
Oh God, no, I'm not really a kind of a
It's all good.
cliche sort of person. I probably do come out with them, but I don't really kind of have
It's all
something that I say. I think one thing that I was always taught is keep it simple.
great.
Um, and I think that is really important because when we kind of do a lot of I've kind of taken quite a lot of the coaching tips into the creative workshops I do now with teams and brands. And often when we talk and are commissioned by founders, especially tech founders, they might not have gone through a branding process, and you don't want to process people. You want them to help them find their own way, but with guidance.
Yes.
And what I find is keeping it simple. I don't mean basic. I mean just being really obvious about what you're saying and helping to guide people through rather than trying to sound too clever, like you're trying to justify what they're paying you and like you're trying to be some sort of guru. Just keep it simple because you get the best out of people. And also people just understand what the hell you're talking about. And the idea of any sort of brand is you have to tell a really good story and it has to be understood by many different audiences. So it's almost stripping away all the complexity. And once you've done that, a bit like the beautiful Apple brand, you compare Apple to Microsoft. Apple is just so simple and beautiful that people get it. And I think sometimes finding the simplicity from a brand point of view or a storytelling point of view is hard. And so I would say keeping it simple is really hard to achieve. But when you do, you know that you've landed it.
Brilliant. Yeah, yeah. Again, that all makes sense, and we have a national podcast that's run by my
Mm,
coach, a guy called James Vincent, and in fact, both that and at an event we had a couple of years ago. So we had Donald Miller speak, the business brand storybook. But when we interviewed him, we actually were in the US, so we went to his home and we did the podcast
mm,
there, and it's a brilliant interview. But he was very much about simple messages that are repeated regularly. And in fact, he had an influence directly on Action Coach in the UK, because our previous strapline had been because business should give you more life. which we fundamentally believe, and it's a big part of what
Mm,
we do, is helping people see how their business can give them the lifestyle they choose to have. So we start with the life and then create, help them
mm,
create the business. And he said, and he was really simple. He said that makes sense for people that work with you, but for people that don't, it perhaps could be a bit more simple, like
mm,
all the help you need to grow your business, which, funnily enough, is now our new strapline. After 20 years of it being something else, it was like, that's it, because that tells people what we do
mm.
in a very, very simple way. Although, as you say, what we do isn't simple. Our message should be. It's absolutely bang on. And Ellen, in terms of sort of learning education, whether it's from being a creative in the creative world or just in general, do you have any favourite books or podcasts that you listen to, or people that you follow that help and support you in what you do?
Yeah, I obviously I follow quite a few different design publications because I think it's really good to see what new ideas, what new energies out there because because obviously sometimes you're kind of remote and you can't just dip into the London, get on the tube and go and be surrounded by loads of galleries and inspiration and things. But I think getting out is quite important. But in short of that, I think there's some great publications online. Creative Boom, BOOM is a really good one, and it's nice that. So there's some really good
Brilliant.
sort of blogs and zines that are just really inspirational. But also I was trained in agile kind of methodology, which is
Yep.
basically taking a project from beginning to end. Um, in sprint phases. So you're not spending hours, weeks doing things. You can sprint it, iterate it. It's very much how, sort of tech and the guy that trained us came over from America and he was training like people who working on the Hyundai kind of assembly line for cars. And it was all about every section all has a job and then you put it all together. So that agile sprint methodology, and there's a book by Jake Knapp who talks about Google Sprints, and that is really worth a great read,
Brilliant.
because it is really good at stopping you eating the elephant whole. That's an expression, okay? Eating the
Yeah.
elephant whole is taking too much on all at once and not knowing where you're going,
Great.
and it's too much. It's
Great.
just too, it'll blow your mind. So the idea of doing sprints is kind of looking at your challenges. It's how you organize your thoughts and then tackling things one by one, bringing people in, sprinting together. So the Google Sprint book by Jake Knapp is I read that from cover to cover and then started incorporating that in how I design workshops for people that aren't used to branding acronyms, don't haven't gone through the process. And let's be honest, when we started in COVID, you can't be on a Zoom for 3 hours because you lose the will to live. You really need to be much more kind of pithy about things. So
Yep.
I kind of created how I work with people with the coaching element, the sprint methodology, and also just listening to people as well. I think giving people time, the floor to sort of speak is really important.
Yes.
And I did read a book called I think it's We Are Pirates. It's by Sam Conniff. I'll sure we can put the link
Yes.
in the
Yes. We'll
chat.
find that.
Sorry, Be More Pirate. And
Yes.
that was all about the pirate democracy. And I thought it was brilliant. I mean, obviously, I'm not advocating that that's a way to make a living, but the idea that the pirate democracy, there were women pirates in the 1700s, like Anne Bonny, and they didn't see her any differently to anybody else, but everybody had an equitable share.
Yep.
And I read that book and listened to Sam Conniff, and it was brilliant. It was a really good way to set up and think about how I was going to work as a creative collective and
Yep.
how we were all going to be equitable and also have equal accountability. So it
Yep.
wasn't just me speaking to clients, it was everybody on the team has
Yep.
accountability and therefore ownership.
Yeah.
And having ownership of something is really powerful and as a creative. So those books kind of really helped me set up my business in a way.
Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. No, yeah, I make sure sense it because it's very much about leadership by what's the right word, by not choice. It's you're a leader because everyone wants you to be a leader, rather than you're appointed a leader and now you've got to prove to be a leader. And you
Yeah.
know, we work with quite a few people who are appointed a leader by themselves because it's their business, and
Mm.
therefore, and it's the how we own how, but that doesn't make you leader. What makes you leader is people wanting to follow you, and
Yeah.
it's very much. I remember somebody using the term followership rather than leadership. It's getting people to follow you because that's the best way forward for them as much as you. Fascinating. So yeah, a lot of what you're talking about isn't just about creatives. I would urge people to understand that. What you've also actually identified because I mean my background from a long time ago was tech, so way before
Mm.
stuff, and the idea of scrums and sprints and things was only just sort of coming to fruition at
Mm.
that point. So it's not something I'm familiar with overly. But what I've just realised is one of the things we do in Action Coach, which I think is relatively rare, is we help people with the longer term goals and strategies, what we're going to achieve year by year and things. But then what we do with all our clients is we have 90-day plans of action. So yeah, we want to have double sales in a year or whatever those things are. But if we're going to do that, what do we bring that down to this quarter? What are we going to do to get there? And it feels like that's not necessarily a sprint, but it's more of a sprint than a 5-year goal, if that makes sense. And
Yeah, yeah, and I think also, I think as a small business, you can look at yourself and you go, "Oh God, am I actually getting anywhere?" And I just think sometimes it's
yeah,
really important to have, I know it sounds a bit cheesy and a bit mindful, but have a bit of reflection time. So
yes,
every quarter, or even sometimes every week, I might just go, "What have I achieved this week?" And you'll be like, you feel like you're running like a hamster on a wheel, and you actually go, well, actually, yeah, I've achieved a couple of
yeah,
things here. Because when you're in your own business, there's nobody to give you a pat on the back and go, well done, Helen,
100%.
well done, you've had a really good week, or you've been really resilient this week. It's not gone quite to plan, but you keep going. There is nobody to do that in your own business. And that's why I think working as a collective, especially in this past year, which is an absolute killer for, everything's really, really tight. Budgets are tight, and it's a very challenging year.
Yes,
I think having that collective support is really important, but also not being too hard on your own self, because I think as a business owner, you will just keep going and flogging yourself to death if you're not careful. And I think just making sure that you check in on yourself about your own mental health and well-being, because I think otherwise you're not effective if you're stressed or worried. You're more effective when it's a bit like desperate dating, or you're desperate for some business. If if you're if you come across as happy and as positive, other people will vibe off that. And I think that's really important. And you have to make sure that you're checking in with yourself and with other people that you can work with or collaborate with, or other people in the same boat as you, because I think that's really important, that support mechanism, because nobody in your own business is giving you a pat on the back every week, and the affirmation is, I think, is actually quite important to keep you going sometimes.
yeah, no, completely agree. And funnily enough, as part of the 90-day process that we follow, one of the sections is celebration. So what have we achieved? And we
Mm.
look back first. And I completely agree with you. Entrepreneurial people, especially, are almost always looking at what they haven't achieved yet rather than what they have achieved. And
Yeah.
without doing that, we're in danger of not building the resilience we need to deal with the difficult times. Because if difficult times when I go, why the hell am I doing it? We've got to have an answer. We've got to have an answer. If you haven't got an answer to that, then it becomes almost impossible to go on. So no, I couldn't agree more. And I think for anyone listening, that celebration of what have we achieved, and also for people with teams, it's important that team celebrates
Mm.
because sometimes that's a reward in itself that we've achieved something. Especially if anyone is a grumpy business owner, all they ever see is being grumpy, then that's not a great leader to follow. I'm sure there weren't many grumpy pirates too regularly, historically, because they wouldn't have been followed. So We've talked a bit about learning, Helen. What have you say you learned about yourself throughout your journey so far?
I've learned about myself to focus on the bigger picture. I think it's very easy to get stuck into the minutiae of
Yeah.
running your own business. You know, there's so much to do at the beginning when you set up, like you're just doing everything, you're spinning a thousand plates. And if you're not careful, you forget why you started in the first place.
Yes.
And so I've learnt about myself is to make sure, and again, that's why I joined an accelerator program because I thought I don't have time to spend a day a week working on my business, not in it. But actually, you really need to,
Absolutely.
because to get out of it means you then focus on where you're actually going, why you started in the first place. And, maybe you have to kind of pivot and things, but I think it helps you make better decisions because I think having are always talking to businesses and brands about you must have a vision and a vision. The mission is how you get there. The vision, you might never achieve it or it might change over time, and that's fine. But if you don't have a vision, why the hell are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
Are you just spinning on that hamster wheel? Where are you going? And nowhere, fast probably. So I think having that vision, my vision is to have tangible impact and to be able to go, we've worked with these guys. This is the impact we have had, not for us as a monetary impact, but we've actually affected change either in a community and for the kids' safety net brand. It will be about stopping children having harmful lives and saving sort of a lot of kids from seeing harmful stuff, which will scar them for life and literally. So those sort of brands and the things I want to do in my vision make me make better choices about who I want to work with because it is again very easy as an entrepreneur. You have an opportunity, you go, you have to weigh it up and you have to have some criteria of why you're doing it. Am I doing it because it'll bolster the cash flow, or am I doing it because it'll enhance and take me where I eventually want to go?
Yes.
And I'm not saying either is wrong, but sometimes you get those opportunities where you think, actually, this would give me some revenue, but it's almost the antithesis of where my vision is.
Yeah.
So I it's not me and I shouldn't be, and it's not right for the business. So it's very hard to say no to people
Yep.
when you are running your own business
Yeah.
and you're
Agreed.
looking at your bottom line. But those are the crunch points in a business where you have to go, just going to have to take a risk here because business without risk is is not really it's not going to be effective. There has to be
Yeah.
an element of risk, and you have to. So what I've learned about myself is to take risks, to be brave, and to really go with the flow because you have no idea what's going to come around the corner in in an hour. You could get a call going, oh yeah, we've got this brand and you've got another a year's work and it's going to be amazing. It's you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So you can't plan to an extent, but you have to be really proactive and not worry about routine and like you have in a full-time job. You just don't have that stability, but you do have flexibility. And it's a very different, I've completely had to change my mindset.
Yes, 100%. Again, it's one of those things is change the mindset because you bang on. You can't plan outcomes, but you can plan activity, and activity
Yes.
will lead to outcomes. So it's like if I do enough of that, I should be confident that that is probably going to happen. It can't be definitely, and it's just starting to build that because, as you say, if
Mm.
if coming from a world where, as you say, outcomes were probably fairly fixed, i.e., it was a I'll get paid at the end of every month, and I do these things to something where, well, I only get paid if a client says I want to work with you or whatever. With all that lack of surety, we need to build a different type of mindset to accept that it is about how, and it's still the same mindset as an employee, but i.e., because it's still the same mindset. If I do reasonably valuable work, I'll stay employed. It's
Mm.
still the same thing, but it's not as seemingly secure. And I think it's that changing of mindset. And I work and I have worked with quite a few people coming from corporate world into business ownership or business leadership, and it's having to change some of those things, and deal with the insecurities of just really not knowing, as you rightly say, what the interesting thing is, we don't know that that's going to happen, but we also don't know that it's going to happen 10 times as much. It's because it is that insecurity. It's probably not, but the challenge with the brain is we tend to want to find patterns, and B, want to find a negative pattern. So it's like, well, I'll find reasons to believe things are going to fail, and that's not a very healthy place to be when we're trying to make something fly.
No, I think what I've learned in setting up my own business is I've got much more understanding of what a founder goes through.
Yes, great.
And I think that's why I really enjoy working with founders,
That's
because you it doesn't really matter what the product is. It's a product. It could be an algorithm that you can't see, or it could be a cookie brand like Junk Bakery. But the idea is that they are taking a risk. They've given up the full-time job. They are creating
great.
something and believe in it, and they want people to be on board with them, that they want to work with, that equally believe in them and are probably used to taking risks as well, of and a bit calculated risks. And I think to tap into that mindset of entrepreneurialism with other people and work with them, I think that's where I've really found a lot of synergy, and why people um like like safety net, they could have gone to a massive brand agency, but they wanted to work with a small collective of creatives that are experts in their own businesses, that have run their own businesses,
Brilliant.
so know exactly what it is to be developing things. And I think that's quite that mindset into who you're working with is really important. And I did read a book again by the Be More Pirate guy, called The Uncertainty Experts. Um, and it's about uncertainty will always happen. So it's how you deal with that uncertainty.
Yep.
So it's more about how you can mitigate your behavior in those uncertain circumstances that will help you deal with situations, because things will always need changing. Things will be successful, things will go wrong. That's just life. But it's how you deal with that uncertainty of things is really important. And if you can get yourself in check, that will help with most situations.
Fabulous. You're making me smile. So this morning, so we have we have a you probably supposed this. I think there's about 250 coach UK actually coach in the UK.
Mm,
So we have our own WhatsApp group, and one of them posts Stoic quotes every day, a Stoic quote, and the one they had today, and it caused a conversation. So this is Seneca. So this is Greek philosopher. Why are we then offended? Why do we complain? This is what we're here for. And there's a bit of an explanation about, we're built for it. And one of
mm,
these I was told, and I posted this as a response, by the then CEO of my organization, probably 15 years ago. And he said, the job of a business owner is to solve problems.
mm,
So if you don't like problems, business ownership probably isn't the right thing for you. And what I've come to believe following that, Helen, from the work I've done, is problems are typically a feature of growing.
mm.
We call them growing pains
Yeah,
for a reason, but they're a feature of growing. Therefore, if we don't have problems, we're probably not growing as fast as we could. So
yeah,
and it's helped me personally, because you're right. I'm a business owner too, working with business owners. Um, is that yeah, is to embrace a problem as a first reaction rather than fear it or run away from it as an issue, and that has helped me and people I work with, because it's like, oh great, okay, we've got a problem, brilliant, okay, we're probably on the
mm,
edge of the growth curve that we need to be, so that's good, even if the
yeah,
problem itself isn't good. Totally get
yeah.
that, but it's just something to deal with. So that makes a lot of sense to me. So looking forward, Helen, what does the future look like for you and your business, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
I think the future isn't that. That's one big thing from coaching, is what does growth look like? And it's all about, could be for most businesses, getting investment, getting bigger, national sales, whatever. But I think in what we do, and what I do with sort of creative strategy and creative design, growth is about learning for me and teaching other people how to use creativity within their businesses.
Yeah.
So, how to think differently, how to go into a team and that might be quite corporate. And how they deal with a challenge could be very different if they had my creative hat on. So I think growth for me is helping other people to look at creativity as a means of solving challenges and to try and help people do it. And so you don't have to be a creative to be a creative thinker.
Yep.
So growth for me is looking at people that aren't typically creative. Um, I do workshops with people that could have the chief financial officer in, and that's
Yep.
fine because they haven't, sometimes you do workshops with people and they haven't had the opportunity to really think in a different way.
Yeah.
So by getting people to think creatively and tackle different challenges from a completely different mindset, that that for me is part of my growth plan for my business, is
Yeah.
about how to use creativity and get people to embrace it in the boardroom, and not just, oh, we need to rebrand, let's get a creative in. It's about creative thinking, like Apple should be in a business. It should be part of the boardroom, not just a design elements like, oh, we need a logo. So that is one big, not a challenge, but one big thing that I'd like to try and use to be able to grow my business is
Yeah.
about how to champion creative thinking, and also to work with more collaborators on bigger projects that might be a bit more long term. I would say definitely it's not about quantity, it's about quality. So it's almost probably in terms of business growth would be finding clients that, as with the child safety brand, Safety Net, that on a long-term basis want to use creativity within their business. So it's not just one project. It's how you embed it in, like a Monzo. Monzo are a great example of how they use creative thinkers all the way through their business to develop a product that is for the end user, not a product that they think is going to be useful. They almost do the inside out. They start off with the consumer and solve their problem.
Yeah.
And so I think working with businesses and brands that want to approach sort of their brand growth in that way is a perfect place for a creative thinker and a team of creative thinkers to
Great.
work. So longer term, deeper, more in-depth relationships with people, is my, and just showing how the power of creativity is a superpower and it's not just a logo and a website.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I'm sure we do things very differently, but when I talk to clients and say, well, look, the values and the culture, the identity of the business, which I guess is related to brand in many ways, but the culture, values, and the identity of your business is absolutely central to the growth of the business. It helps people decide, do I want to be on our team? Whether
Yeah.
that's clients, whether it's employees, whether it's suppliers, we're clearly stating this is what we believe to be true. This is what's important to us. This is what we do. If this isn't right for you, then don't. Going back to your point about from sales perspective, you're bringing on a client that you're mismatched with is totally understandable when at the start of a business we just are chasing cash because cash is king at that point and it gives us, as you said, the sanity. But once we've got some level of we've just off that, pre-takeoff, but we've got some sort of security. It's the quicker we can get to a point where we're clear about the people we serve best, and that want to be part of our gang, the quicker everything becomes more simple. It's certainly, we have better relationships with our clients. We typically deliver better. Everyone is happier. And, happiness ultimately is probably the end goal for most people in life.
Mm.
So why shouldn't it be the end goal in business too?
Yeah, I think it's finding your tribe. finding your
Yes.
tribe of people to work with, finding your tribe of people to work with from a client side as well. And ultimately, it sounds really cheesy, but you never say, I wish I'd worked more. It's usually kind of, I wish I'd spent more time with my family. And for me, as a hitting 50 this year, probably one of the oldest women creative directors in the UK, it's about feeling like I'm 30, um, embracing bringing other collaborators on that might be younger than me from really different backgrounds, and helping the industry be more diverse because it really isn't. That's really something I'd quite like to, as a challenge, I would like to help be part of the solution by changing the way that people are recruited or the model, or being able to employ people or just even work with people that don't necessarily have those chances. So a kid from college that's great at what they do but can't get a job in an agency, it's like, come collaborate with me. So I think it's really important to, if you think something is slightly broken, don't moan about it, just fix it and be part of helping people grow in the solution. And I do a lot of free coaching with female creatives through Kerning the Gap, which is about helping people within the industry and help help them grow. I do a lot of work with in primary schools to help kids with their vision, because I do it for brands. So I thought, well, maybe kids need a vision. It's not just about what subjects can I take. It's what do you actually really enjoy in life? Where do you want to be? So taking what I do into educational environments and knowledge transfer, I would like to think that I've left the creative industry and use creative thinking to help others.
Brilliant, brilliant, absolutely fabulous. It feels like it's quite exciting times in what you're doing right now, and I'm sure there's a lot more to come. And I know I was going to mention you're speaking for anyone that's watching. You're speaking at the Climb UK event at the beginning of July.
Yeah, we're doing a master brand sort of masterclass sprint in 45 minutes
Oh,
called
brilliant!
called Humanity Bites. So it's about humanizing tech brands. So the idea that if you're a tech founder, you could have been spending 10 years creating MVP, but if it's not a human brand with a really simple story, as we were talking about, nobody cares and nobody's going to buy it. And even to stand out, you don't have to be different. You just need to be really engaging. So that masterclass is going to be for tech founders that don't have the creative marketing part of their business, but would like to plug in and start thinking about it. And they've probably, as we said in coaching, they've probably got it all inside, but it just needs pulling out. So that is just a real taster of trying to help people start to think about their human values within their business. So it's
Brilliant.
very specific, and that's what we've been asked to do. So that'll be exciting. And we're at London Tech Week next Tuesday, walking around with giant, bright yellow Humanity Bites t-shirts on, but we haven't got a stand because we would rather use the money to actually um, fund our trips and talk to people rather than be on a stand and trying to sell stuff, which I've already said I hate selling. So we're going to go around to, so if anybody's in London Tech Week, again, come and talk to us. We'd love to have a chat about helping people that traditionally don't know where to go.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. Well, Helen, it's been absolutely delightful talking to you, and lots very insightful too. And I'm sure things are going to go from strength to strength for you. And for anyone that's watching that would like to get in touch with you or your business, what's the best way of doing that?
Well, the logo's on this side.
Yep, that's the one.
So it's helenhartleyconsulting.com is my website.
Great.
So clues in the name. And it's just Helen at helenhartleyconsulting.com. But there's a
Brilliant.
contact form on there as well. Or you'll find me on LinkedIn. I'm always posting about things that are kind of hopefully of interest to people. I just want to post on green initiatives within schools because I'm helping a local school try to look at decarbonisation as just as a pro bono
Brilliant.
because it's like So there's an article on there. So yeah, just follow me on LinkedIn as well. DM me on there. That's my most used tool, I think.
Brilliant. Well, look, it'd be great to swim by another 6, 12 months and just see what the next chapter unfolds. But
Yeah.
but for now, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Helen.